happy super full moon in Gemini. This video is maybe the first of many that I might start doing once a month with the full moon. I'm going to talk about an archetype, a feminine archetype with the full moon. Of course, I'm going to talk about the energies of both the sun and the moon, and then the feminine archetype as well. Obviously, I'm going to have journal prompts. It's just a given. Okay, with me, you can always expect journal prompts. At the end of the video, I will be pulling a goddess card and a goddess of love tarot card. I really love these cards. They're really amazing. So I was like, you know what, let's just get a little extra little feminine magnetism message for the viewer before we wrap things up. So yeah, you might want to have your journal handy. You might not. You might want to come back later, do this later, just listen for now. Totally up to you. Going forward, I will have a little whiteboard with me. It was supposed to be delivered yesterday, but I live in the Midwest. It snowed. It did not get delivered. It'll be here today at some point. So yay, it'll be a little bit more visually exciting going forward. But yes, so this particular video, we're going to talk about the StoryWeaver. So let's get into it. Okay, so the feminine archetype, the StoryWeaver, her masculine counterpart would be the scribe. The scribe is fact-based, okay? The scribe writes down the facts. The StoryWeaver is the one who weaves a tapestry of story, right? Now, I have a whole lot of things written here in my grimoire for us to chat about today. I am going to try to keep this video around 20 minutes. Wish me luck. But anyway, so she is the ruthless editor of her own myth. She catches the unconscious narratives from childhood, from culture, from survival mode, and says, nope, that story is expired. I am authoring a new one. She's the feminine intelligence that witnesses patterns, sees the threads behind behaviors, questions old scripts, distills truth from the noise, and reclaims agency through language. She chooses which identity stays and which dissolves. Okay? So this I chose the StoryWeaver particularly for Gemini because Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And I love Gemini so much. Now, Gemini is a sister sign of Sagittarius, and I am a Sagittarius, so I feel like I understand Gemini. To know Sag is to know Gemini to a degree because we're very similar types of people. And I'll get more into this throughout the video, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the StoryWeaver here, and then we'll get into the shadows of Gemini, not because I don't like Gemini, as I just said, I love Gemini, but because, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, but because the moon is typically dark. The only reason we're seeing the moon right now is because the sun is shining its light on the moon. So in my humble doctoral, my metaphysical doctoral opinion, we're getting to see the shadow of the moon. Okay, we're seeing all of the moon in all of her glory because the sun is shining upon her, right? So anyway, back to our storyteller. StoryWeaver, my apologies, same diff. She gets to know her shadows by interviewing them. She listens, extracts meanings. She alchemizes fragmented inner dialogue into cohesive, empowered narrative. Gemini energy gives her the threads, the details, the thoughts, the dualities, and the contradictions. Sagittarius energy gives her the loom, the big picture, the meaning, the purpose, the direction, the truths. So Gemini Gemini is represented by the twins. You may or may not know that. They are considered, sometimes they're considered two-faced, like that kind of vibe. They have I'll get more into this, like I said. They have a lot of interests, okay? They're very, they want to know a lot about a lot of things. I see nothing wrong with that. I'm the same way. I always say, like, I'm a Jackie of a lot of trades. I know a lot about, I know a little bit about a lot of things. I don't know that I'm a master at any one thing because I like to know about a lot of different things. Gemini is like that. They are, we'll get more into it, like I said, but they love to know everything. They're wisdom seekers. Now, Sagittarius is also a wisdom seeker sign, but they learn typically through experience, whereas Gemini will typically learn through learning, like books and things like that. Not saying Sag doesn't learn through books. It's just that Sagittarius would rather like learn through adventure, right? We're the more adventurous ones. So we'll go out and we'll have the experience, whereas Gemini might like stay and learn through books and knowledge and all of that. So typically they'll gather like the details and the thoughts. Okay. And then Sagittarius kind of zooms out. They see the bigger picture, the meaning behind everything, and it kind of can come together in one big tapestry. So I hope I'm not losing anybody. I hope what I'm saying is making sense. And someday when I have my little whiteboard, I can draw a little picture for you if you're more of a visual learner. So my apologies. So let's get into the shadows of Gemini. All right, so let's talk about Gemini shadows. Now, one of the things that I always want to mention whenever we're talking about moon energies or just energies in general is that you do not have to be the sun sign or the moon sign in order for an energy to affect you. We all carry some of these signs in our chart somewhere. Some of us have heavier placements, like we might have some planets heavy in a particular house or sign that really do affect some of us stronger than others. So for instance, my sun is in Sagittarius. So obviously, the energies are really going to affect me a little bit more right now than somebody with, say, a sun in, I don't know, Aquarius right now, right? They might not be so affected, okay? But they're still going to have Gemini in their chart somewhere, and they might have a placement of something in Sagittarius or a placement of Gemini in something somewhere. So they might still be affected. Even if they don't have anything, they still have Gemini in their birth chart, and it still, to a degree, will affect them on some level. Okay. Just may not be as significant for them as it might be for someone else. So hopefully that makes sense. And then if we're looking at this, even just, if we want to really dig into our own psyches and if we want to get into the archetypes and things like that, this is where we're going to kind of dig in with ourselves. And this is where I invite that like internal exploration for you. All right. We all have an opportunity here. Whether you want to do it or not is up to you. I'm leading you to the water. It's up to you if you want to drink. Okay. I'm going to share with you a little bit about the shadows of Gemini. Again, this is not a dig. We all have shadow. We all have light. When it's Sagittarius's time to be in the full moon, I'm going to share Sagittarius's shadows. Maybe even Sagittarius's new moon. I'll share. They're not so great qualities. They don't have any, but I'm just kidding. Okay, let's talk about it. So one of the shadows that Gemini has is a fragmented mind, which I kind of did talk about, right? Being the Jackie of all trades or the Jack of all trades. Too many identities, too many directions. So this is where the inner story weaver asks. This is the first journal prompt, and it's again in the description box, so you don't have to like scribble. Of course, you can pause me if you want and write it down. But which version of me speaks the truth, and which one speaks fear? So that's a question that you can ask yourself with this full moon. which version of me speaks truth, and which version of me speaks fear, speaks from fear. Sorry about my throat. It's Mercury, I tell ya. Okay. So the other another shadow for Gemini is the compulsive narrator, over explaining, overthinking, telling the same disempowering story. So the question here is, what story have I been telling on autopilot that drains my power? This is a story, or this is a question for you for the full moon. What story have I been telling on autopilot that drains my power? We can all be asking ourselves this question, not just if you're Gemini, not just if you're a Sagittarius. This is a question for everybody. What story have I been telling on autopilot that drains my power? Okay, the third shadow side of Gemini is the mask maker. Surface level charm. This is hiding a deeper hurt. So what we're asking here, or what we need to ask ourselves here, is what's the real wound behind the persona? What is the real wound behind the persona? So, it's that kind of like the example of like someone asks how you're doing and your response is, I'm fine. I'm fine. Or, you're very charming. It's a lot of people say this about Gemini, and this, I'm sorry if you're a Gemini and you're watching this, I love you. But it is that two-faced thing, right? That where they say one thing, but maybe they don't actually mean it. But there's a wound there. And what is that wound? Where did that start? Like, I guarantee it probably started in childhood, but that's for you to figure out. It's not for me to say. So these are questions you can ask yourself, and maybe you find that you do that just in general as well. Maybe you do wear a mask for certain things, or maybe you are kind of a charmer, right? And maybe there's a surface level thing going on about you, and it's like, well, okay, what is that wound? And it's not to take it out on people or take it out on anybody. It's just to get familiar with it and like, yeah, what's that about for me? All right. Fourth shadow. I'm so sorry if you're a Gemini and you're watching this. You're like, geez. I love you, I swear. Okay. Fourth shadow. The info collector. All right. Never acting, because she's always collecting facts, ideas, and opinions. So never actually acting on anything, just always collecting the information. So this is where your inner story weaver asks, what am I avoiding taking action on by staying in research mode? What am I avoiding taking action on by staying in research mode? So maybe you have found yourself doing that from time to time, where you are just like always the student and never the master at something, right? Because you have stayed in research mode, collecting info, never feeling good enough, right, to take that next step, because maybe there's that fear of like, I don't know enough yet. I still need to get more info on this thing or that topic or whatever the case may be. I'm still don't know everything there is to know. Okay. And then the fifth, the child mind. Old stories from childhood that still run the show. So your question here is, what childhood story about myself is still shaping my adult behavior? What childhood story about myself is still shaping my adult behavior? Okay, and then the last one, the last little shadow aspect here is the scattered soul. And it's dabbling, dipping, bouncing between everything. And the question here is, what's the core truth beneath all these interests? So if you find that to be a thing for you as well, not being able to maybe settle on one thing, or just, not being able to necessarily hone in on one particular thing for you. Maybe there's a deeper thing going on there for you. So maybe getting in touch with that, whatever that might be for you, it could be a thing. And maybe it's not, but it's still worth looking into and it's still worth investigating. So again, the question is, what's the core truth beneath all these interests? So now, because we got the sun in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is the best. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I swear. I know I've said it a lot, but we are going to talk about Sagittarius Sun, and we're going to talk about the light, excuse me, the light attributes of Sagittarius, and how Sagittarius can kind of, what Sagittarius does to sort of offer up the antidote with the heaviness of the Gemini moon. So let's get into it. So let's talk a little bit about Sagittarius's light attributes and how they work together, how Sagittarius and Gemini sort of work together. Okay. So as I sort of mentioned at the beginning of this video, Sagittarius and Gemini will share very similar traits, being that they are sister signs and they are directly across from one another on the astrological wheel. Okay. So Sagittarius is represented as a centaur. And so that's got, centaur has the horse body and the human torso. And then the bow and arrow. I like the female version of it, of course, or the woman version, because, but they're a very optimistic sign. They're always looking for the higher meaning in things, very philosophical types, very spiritual, I wouldn't necessarily box them into religion per se, although some Sagittarians can be in pursuit of wanting to understand what it all means. They're always searching for the meaning, always, definitely truth people. They value truth for sure. You can count on them for that. Sagittarians are adventurous. Okay. They can sometimes be risk takers. I was watching a video a couple of years ago. It was on Netflix. I forget what it was. Gosh, it was so funny too, because it was like this guy who like scammed people out of like a ton of money. He like set up this music fest thing. You might know what it is, but anyway, he like created this whole thing, and like, oh my God, I felt so bad for all these concert goers. It was a total nightmare, right? People showed up. It was awful, like a terrible event. Anyway, I was like, my God, is this guy like a Sagittarius? He was. He was absolutely a Sagittarius. The guy who put on the event, or tried to put on the event, just complete optimist to the point where like he completely effed up the entire thing. I mean, I don't know if he did what he did on purpose, but he completely screwed so many people over. Anyway, it was bad. So, Sagittarians will get themselves into things like that, not purposely. Sometimes I don't think purposely. I've never done anything purposely like that, but I mean, they can be risk takers. They can be gamblers because they just always think everything's going to work out, and sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. I'll be real. Sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, I think that's enough about that. So what Sagittarius says is zoom out. Okay. What's the meaning here? What's the path forward? How can we expand? Sagittarius is the antidote to Gemini's shadow. So Gemini is the data and Sagittarius is the wisdom. So what Gemini, kind of collects, I guess, Sagittarius says, okay, this is what we've gained from all of that. Gemini is the details, and then Sagittarius is the direction. So Gemini says, here's everything that we've got. And Sagittarius says, all right, here's where we can take all of that. Okay. Gemini is self-analysis and Sagittarius is self-liberation. So Gemini says, okay, this is what I've learned about me. And Sagittarius says, okay, this is how we can free ourselves of the painful story of, here's what we can do to correct. Here's what all the things. Here's the meaning behind it. Here's the higher purpose for it, right? Gemini is what happened, and then Sagittarius is what it all means. Gemini is the words, and Sagittarius is the vision. So those are just some of the things that I wrote down about Sagittarius and Gemini, and they're two energies and how they work together with one another. Okay, so my last page here, I do have the Story Weaver just sort of summed up here, and I will go back to that here. I am going to pull us a goddess card and then a tarot. I can't think of it. Goddess of Love tarot card, just to kind of give you a little extra help, I guess, maybe for this month, or yeah, for the next month. We'll go with that. And I really love this particular deck too, because not only does it just give you a little like, I almost want to say like flavor. It's not a traditional tarot where it's very like, here's the advice per se. It's very goddess forward. It's very feminine forward. And it's also, she gives a journal prompt, she gives an affirmation. So I love this, and I feel it's very on brand for what I do. And I'm hopeful that if you are loving what we do over here on Sovereign with Natalie or the Sovereign Sanctuary, that you'll love it too. And you'll be able to take it with you for the month ahead. Okay. So stay tuned for that. And then we will wrap up this video with a little recap of your inner story weaver. So yeah, let's get a card. All right, so I'm going to pull us a card from, I have two decks together. I've got Goddess Guidance Oracle cards by Doreen Virtue, and then the Goddess Power Oracle deck. I call it Baron Reed together. I did pre-shuffle. Also, if you hear any like bangs or crazy noise outside my building, they are removing snow. I apologize ahead of time for it, but there's nothing I can really do. So it is what it is. I did pre-shuffle the deck. I hope you trust me. We're just going to get one card. I'm going to sort of intuit the message, and then we'll just go from there. I did bring the books as well, just because sometimes there's stuff in the books that, you know, I just, there's just extra messages in there. So anyway, who is the goddess that the viewer or viewers could work with this full moon over the next month? Full moon energies, working with their shadows, working with their inner story weaver, the goddess that will be the most helpful for their inner transformation and feminine power. Ooh, I love Ma'at. Truth. She's one heck of a powerful goddess. I love her so very much. Okay, so you might already know or be familiar with Ma'at. She's an Egyptian goddess. She represents truth. She reminds me a lot of like Libra energy. She's represented, I mean, she's not represented by the scales, but Libra is represented by the scales. So, you know, she weighs things with the feather and the heart. Basically, when you pass over, it used to be that your heart would be weighed on a scale with a feather, and if it balanced out, you would pass on to basically like heaven. And if it was heavier than the feather, then sorry, my battery is getting low, then you would not. So anyway, but she is all about fairness and truth. So I take this more so as like your inner truth and what we're working on with these journal prompts, especially with Sagittarius too, the sun in Sagittarius. And as I mentioned, Sagittarius being the truth seekers, she's a wonderful goddess to call upon to help you, you know, what truth am I not seeing inside of me? what truth am I not wanting to face, or am I just not seeing completely? All right. So that said, let me just see if there's any additional thing here that I might be missing. There's great power in telling the truth and allowing it to lead you to higher ground. It's only when we refuse to see the reality of a situation that we lose our power to co-create for the highest good. The Egyptian goddess Ma'at comes to remind you that if you are willing to do fearless self-inventory, which is what we're doing, so that's perfect. I feel like she's just kind of blessing this video, if anything, and live authentically with rigorous honesty, it will lead you to great success in all areas of your life. Being completely transparent with others, although it might at first feel too vulnerable, is exactly what you need to do now. So I feel like more being completely vulnerable with yourself, you know, it does feel awkward. It really does. And it's not always easy for people. And I think if it was really easy, everybody would be doing it. You know, this work is not, I don't think it is easy work. I applaud you for wanting to do it because, again, if it was easy, the whole world would be doing it. So kudos to you for being here. But it's exactly what you need to do now. So when you do this, you will be flooded with the power to claim and experience a new freedom, the liberation, and a new happiness that will pour over your life like a wild, sweet honey. Your life is exactly where it needs to be. This is a wonderful time of empowered choice making. You are doing all the right things if you follow the invitation of Ma'at to live fearlessly in truth. As the arbiter of balance and divine order, she reminds you of the great value of this way of being. So work with Ma'at, okay? With when you're, especially as you're doing this self-inventory, what we've kind of gone through today. I also did pre-shuffle our Goddess of Love tarot. So let's just get an additional card for you for your extra little feminine magnetism message here. What does the viewer need to hear? A little extra feminine magnetism message for the viewer. Okay, I'll shuffle 3 more times if the card doesn't fall out. That's too many. Thank you. 2, 3. Okay, I'll take this one. The Star card. Love it. I don't know if I can show this. It's just a statue, so it should be fine. Some of these are a little risque. So let me see what this card says. As I mentioned, this deck is just chef's kiss. All right, if it's too like estual, I may not say certain words, but because I don't want to get like, you know, flagged or anything. So she's actually representative of the goddess Inanna. If you ever listen to my podcast, I do talk about her in one of the episodes. I forget which episode Inanna is. I apologize. But I'm trying to speed this up a bit. The star means spiritual illumination and sustenance, a return to inner knowing. It is one of the most auspicious cards in the deck, like the goddess herself is giving you her third eye, giving your third eye a little kiss. It's the metaphoric light at the end of the tunnel after the intensity of the tower. Just as Ereshkigal as the tower represents the underworld aspect of the goddess of love. In her role as catalyst of erotic destruction, Inanna represents her heavenly face as the star. After her descent to the underworld, the Sumerian goddess of sex and war comes out, transformed, having experienced the trials and tribulations of mortality. This vulnerability allows her to surrender to her true nature as an expression of the universe made manifest. The star is generally seen as the North Star, a guide on the spiritual path. This is the comforting message you've been waiting for. It is a reminder from the cosmos that this love is the experience. This path is sacred. Your sensuality, your sexual expression, and eroticism are your guide to the mysteries of the universe and into your purpose. It wasn't reversed, so we're not going to take it reversed. Your affirmation is, I am divinely led by the goddess on the path of love and lust. I love that. And then your journal question is, what is unfolding in my heart and how am I being shown the power of surrender to the divine erotic? So that is a little extra feminine magnetism boost for you with this full moon as you traverse your inner planes, because it's like, you know, we can do the heavy stuff as well, but it's also important to tend to the sensual side of your life as well. So, I mean, you may not have all the time in the world to do these things, and I get it. But if you can find some time to, you know, touch base with the more sensual side of yourself, it really does help, and it really can make a difference in how you feel, in what you attract, in your just overall confidence too. So, the goddess Inanna, you might want to go listen to her podcast episode. You might want to do her yoga practice that I have. It's also, I'll link that here as well. But yeah, she travels into the underworld, and then I guess we're kind of traveling into the underworld as we strip down some of our stories and our ego stuff, and we tap into truths, right? Our inner truths, and what's really going on underneath our behaviors, and why we do things, and why we weave the stories that we weave, and telling ourselves a new story, and kind of undoing and reweaving a new tapestry, right? Sagittarius is giving us a new loom to work with, and Gemini is giving us new threads to weave a beautiful story with, if we want it. So let's wrap up our video with just a little overview of the Story Weaver, and we'll end our video with just that little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Summary. How about that? So the inner Story Weaver. She's the woman who sees her patterns, she names her shadows, and she integrates them. She rewrites the narrative with deliberate magic. She's not passive, she's not pretty, she's powerful, she's precise, she's discerning, and she's clear. She is the priestess of truth. Now, I wrote this last night, you guys, and look who came out. So, you know, if you don't believe in magic, like, hello, that's not magical. I don't know what is. She's the weaver of words, the keeper of meanings, interpreter of voices, the reclaimer of personal myth, the architect of identity, mother of narratives yet to be written. She's clear, sharp, intuitive, but most of all, she's sovereign. So I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Please let me know in the comments if you did. Please like, subscribe to the channel. And yes, I will be doing another one of these next month. I will have my whiteboard. So if you're a more visual learner, please know that that's on its way. And then be on the lookout for the new moon video in a couple of weeks. Of course, I'll have another video next month or next week, a yoga video that we can do together. Otherwise, yes. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing the work. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for trusting me. Happy full moon to you. And as always, I'm sending you so much love, so many blessings, and so much light. All right. Bye-bye for now.